So good again to have you here with us today. And those of you joining us online, we're so thankful for you being with us as well. I'm excited about next week. Next week, we're kicking off a brand new teaching series called Give, Serve, Love. And what I'm really excited about is next Sunday, Dan and Kiara Kinzinger are actually going to kick the series off. They're going to talk about their experiences as foster parents and how the connection with caring for some of the most vulnerable in our world connects to the gospel. So you don't want to miss next week as we kick that off. It's going to be an incredible, incredible time. And we'll go on from there over the next 3 weeks, beginning next Sunday. But this Sunday, we're going to have kind of a standalone sermon, standalone topic, but something I'm incredibly excited about as well. I knew that we were going to be having in between before our new series hit, and I was thinking, God, what do you want me to share? What's something that you would have me preach, that our folks need to hear, that I need to hear? And he brought up to my memory this idea of a mosaic. It's some of my most favorite artwork. And in fact, I think we've got an image. This is just one of tons of examples of what a mosaic looks like. It's beautiful, broken pieces of glass and clay and pottery that someone with a vision, they see these broken pieces and they see somehow in their mind's eye. I can't see it because that's just not my gift. But they can see in their mind's eye, I can create something beautiful out of this. And so we're going to talk a little bit about a mosaic this morning. But the first question is, what in the world does that have to do with following Jesus? What does a mosaic have to do with being a follower of Jesus? And so in order to share that information, I need to kind of go back in time. We'll get in the Wayback Machine and go back to when I was, say, 8 or 9 years old. Now, I grew up, most of you know that have been here for a little bit, and those of you watching online, but if you're new here, I grew up in Northeast Alabama. It was kind of in the same area geographically as where we are here in Northeast Indiana, kind of that same little pocket. We were on the corner of Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee, the line there, and I could be in either of those two states in a matter of 30 minutes, 45 minutes, depending on how I was driving, 15 minutes, I could be there. And it was a beautiful place to live. I loved the area. I mean, there were tons of trees and mountains and creeks and rivers. It was just a beautiful, awesome place to live. But one of the things that I loved about living in that part of the country the most was the house that I grew up in. Now, it wasn't this grandiose house or anything. It was just a simple home. But the thing that was really cool about it is my dad built it all by himself. It took him 5 years to do it. And he never borrowed a penny for it. He paid for it as he went and bought supplies, and he would build a little bit, save up money, go buy more supplies. And 5 years later, he has this beautiful home he's never had a mortgage on. And it's the home my mom and dad still live in today. And it's probably the home that they will live in until Jesus comes or until they pass away. And again, it wasn't this magnificent mansion or anything. It was just a simple 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. But the thing I loved the most about it was there was this huge brick exterior wall. And it was the perfect wall for practicing baseball against. Now, I grew up as a kid. I played every sport that was available in our area. Baseball, basketball, football, you name it, I was there. I didn't have an off season. I was constantly playing something. And baseball was by far my favorite and the one that I was the most gifted at. In fact, I went on and played college baseball. It was just a gift that God blessed me with. So I'm outside. I would spend 2 or 3 hours a day just working on my game against this big brick side wall at our house. And I can remember this one particular day. I was 8 or 9 years old, and I was having an incredibly good day. The pitches were just looking good, and it was going where I wanted it to go. I felt like I had good control, velocity. It was all doing really, really well, and I wanted my parents to see. But they were on the other side of the house doing something completely different, and so I had this idea. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to the front of the house. We had another small little wall. Not near as large as the one on the side, but it was just there at the front, and I could pitch there, and they could see how well I was doing. And so I did, and I was pitching for about 10 minutes, and man, everything was going perfect, and then it happened. I threw the perfect pitch. I mean, it was one of those pitches that had there been a scout somewhere nearby, they would have signed me to a future contract on the spot. It was that good. It was that beautiful. There was one problem with the pitch. It was going straight towards my mother's kitchen window. And as soon as I released the baseball, it was like one of those movie scenes where everything slows down. And I could see it like, it was almost like I could run up and catch the ball before it hit the window, but I just couldn't. But that's the way it looked in my mind. And the next sound that I hear is, and there's shattered glass everywhere. And I'm mortified. I'm terrified as this 8 or 9-year-old little kid. I can't believe what I just did. I knew in that moment, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that my mother hated me, that our relationship would never be the same. And then it was all my fault. Like I had done that. You ever been in a situation like that? Something that you didn't intend to happen. You didn't mean for this to take place, but because of just a stupid decision, because of not thinking clearly, because of just moving in a specific direction, there's something that happened, and it caused brokenness in a relationship, and it was your fault. I think if we're honest, every single person in the room, every single person watching online, we could say, yeah, I've been there. I've been guilty of that, and I felt that way. See, in that moment, I knew my mother was this awesome lady. I knew that she was going to love me no matter what, but all I could hear in that moment were the broken pieces of glass screaming out at me, this is all your fault. You did this. You jacked this up. Man, this is on you. And she's going to be angry. And I'm not sure what scared me more, what she would say or what she would do. There was just this primal fear that was within me. Like, I've broken this relationship with my mother. Chances are we've all been there. But the good news for you and for me is that we're not the only ones who've been there. We're not the only ones who've experienced that. In fact, there's this story in this book written by a prophet in the Jewish scriptures that would make up our Old Testament. A guy named Ezekiel. He was sent by God into this valley that was covered with dry bones. It was covered with just thousands and thousands of bones, and God had him walk all through the bones, and he's looking around, and God asks him a question. He says, can these bones live again? To which the prophet says, God, you're the only one who knows the answer to that. I have no idea. They look pretty dry and dead to me. What God tells him about these bones is really impactful. And I believe it has something that he can speak to you and to me about this morning. So I'm going to read this from the Message paraphrase. So if you don't have that translation of the Bible with you, or you don't have it on your sermon notes, that's fine. I'm going to have it on the screen, but it is in sermon notes there if you want to take a look at those on the YouVersion app. But here's what God said about this particular valley filled with bones. He said, then God said to me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Listen to what they're saying. Our bones are dried up. Our hope is gone. There is nothing left of us. Our bones are dried up. Our hope is gone. There's nothing left. What a statement. What a statement from the nation of Israel that God was comparing these bones to. What a statement from this group of people who were called out by God to follow God, to serve God. They're saying, hey, there's no hope for me. There's no hope for us. We've done too many things. We've walked away from God. We're broken beyond repair. That window in my mother's kitchen was broken beyond repair. I could walk up and try to pick up the pieces and put them back together, but all that's going to accomplish is cutting my hands. It's not going to make the window whole again. And so from my perspective, as an 8 or 9-year-old little kid, all I can see is brokenness, and nothing good is ever going to come from it. and there's no hope. That's what Israel was saying. I was so distraught in that moment that I did the only thing I knew to do as an 8 or 9-year-old little kid. I took off running to my room. I jumped in my bed. I buried my head in my cover, and I cried hard. I mean, like I wept because I had just broken this relationship with my mom in my mind. I had just broken this trust. I had just done something that she could never forgive me of. My dad came in and he tried to comfort me, and my dad's an honest man, but I didn't believe him. I thought he was lying to me. He came in and he said, it's going to be okay. We can get the window fixed. Don't worry about it. But I knew there was no hope to repair this relationship. Some of us in the room this morning, some of us watching online today, that's the way we look at our relationship with God. We've looked at our walk with God. We've looked at our relationship with God as something that I've done that is so broken, that I have distanced myself from Him so much that there is no hope. There's no chance of redemption. There's no chance of reconciliation. There's no chance that I can come back into good relationship with Him because I've done something, or I've said something, or I've behaved in such a way, I've carried myself in such a way that there's no chance that God can love me. And so here's what we try to do. Our nature is to go and pick up the broken pieces and to try to put them all back together and form something out of it. It's like that cartoon where someone breaks a lamp and they try to glue it all back together and make it look right, but you can still see all the cracks and everything, and then somebody breathes and it falls apart. That's about how it goes when we try to put our lives back together with our own strength and our own power. We get the glue everywhere, and there's cracks and stuff that are seen, and somebody just breathes and it just goes falling down again, and we're like, gosh, what in the world? What in the world am I supposed to do? What we're supposed to do is bring those broken pieces to God. What we're supposed to do is bring our brokenness, all the ugly, all the junk, all the stuff, all the things that keep us at a distance. We're supposed to bring them to God and say, I can't do anything with this. Now, we have some art teachers that call level 13 home. And they're gifted. I've seen some of their artwork. I've seen paintings and drawings. They're incredibly gifted. And I have no doubt that if I would have brought a bunch of mosaic pieces this morning, while I was preaching, they could have come up here and created this beautiful mosaic artwork, and it would have been awesome, and it would have set everything off, and it would have looked great. Because they know what they're doing. But if I were to do that and I was going to let them preach and I'm going to try to make the mosaic, nobody wants to see that. In fact, you would pay me to stop because it would be so bad. Because broken pieces of glass in my hand, all they do is cut. But broken pieces in the hands of a master, they can become something beautiful. Broken pieces in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing can become this beautiful tapestry, this beautiful piece of art that we look at and we say, man, I don't know how you ever saw the potential in what was so broken. But you've turned it into this masterpiece. You turned it into this beautiful piece of art that my mind and my eyes can't see, but you saw it. You had a vision for it. You knew that it was going to come out this way. You knew it was going to turn out this way. In your life and in mine, when we fail and we make those mistakes, when we fall, a lot of times it's hard for us to see anything beautiful coming from it. All we see is the brokenness. All we see are the mistakes. All we see are the failures. All we see are the times that we didn't measure up to the standard. All we see are the ways that we turned and walked away from God. We turned our back on God and we said, God, I don't want to hear what you have to say right now. I'm going to do my own thing. That's all we see We see those things scattered along our lives. And any number of us, we could point back to moments. We could say, you know what? Yeah, that was me. I felt that. That was me. I lived that. That was me. I felt as if there was no hope for me. That's what these bones were crying out to Ezekiel. There's no chance. There's no hope for us. But God had a different plan. God had a different story for those bones, and I'm convinced God has a different story for you and for me. Well, there's a contemporary Christian artist, a guy by the name of Matthew West. I like a lot of his music. In fact, there was one period of time in my life when I was convinced he had a 24/7 camera on me, because every song that he wrote, every album that he put out spoke specifically to something that I was dealing with in my life. And I'm not making that up. I'm not using preacher talk and hyperbole. Like, legit. 12 songs on a 12-song album spoke specifically to an issue that I was dealing with in my life. That's not an exaggeration. Haley and I laughed about it, but we had to say, like, for real, is he watching our lives? Because it was that freaky. And one of his songs, one of the albums, there's a song called Mended. I want to read the second verse. This is God speaking. You see your past mistakes. I see the price I paid. There's nothing you could ever do to lose what grace has won. So hold on. It's not the end. This is where love's work begins. I'm making all things new, and I will make a miracle of you. I remember hearing the lyrics to that song for the first time and thinking, you know what, that's so powerful. Because the lie that the enemy of your soul and mine teaches us and yells to us and screams out to us is there's no hope for you, there's no hope for me, you'll never be anything. You may as well quit. Following God isn't worth it because you can't do it. You'll never accomplish what you need to accomplish. You'll never become what you need to become because you're just not good enough, you're not strong enough, you've made too many mistakes. That's what the enemy says in your life and in mine. But what God says is, look, I see the price I was willing to pay. And that price cost me my son. And it was worth it. Because I love you. And I'm not looking at you expecting perfection. I'm not looking at you asking you to come to me all cleaned up. I'm not looking at you saying, get yourself up by your bootstraps, and then when you got all your junk together, come talk to me and we'll see if there's a negotiation that can take place. That's not what he says. He says, come to me. Broken, messed up, with all your scars, and I can make a miracle out of you. Earlier we said broken pieces in the hands of a master can become something beautiful, but I think when it comes to God, we need to change the language just a little bit. We could say it like this: our broken pieces in the hands of the master will become something beautiful. Your brokenness in the hands of God will become a beautiful story that can point someone else to Jesus. Your brokenness in the hands of the Father, in the hands of the one who is so loving, will become something beautiful. And it will serve as a testimony of his ability, his faithfulness, his grace, his power. This valley of dry bones that God brings Ezekiel to, they say, there's no hope for me. We're all dried up. There's nothing left. That was the nation of Israel. They were crying out. Previous to that statement, God asked Ezekiel, can they live again? Can the bones come back to life? Can they live again? And he says, Lord, you're the only one who knows the answer to that. And so God spoke to him and he said, I want you to prophesy. I want you to speak truth in this valley of death, in this valley of bones. I want you to speak truth. And as he began to prophesy, he began to speak truth, the bones began to make a rattling noise. And they formed back into the skeleton of humans. And then along came the tissue and the sinews and the muscle, and the ligaments and the tendons, and they formed back over the body, over the skeletons. And then there was skin, and it came and it covered all of the things until there was this giant army. But there was still no breath. There was still no life. And so God spoke to him and he said, I want you to prophesy to the wind and say, breathe, come and breathe into this army and make them alive again. So Ezekiel did. He prophesied to the winds, and the breath of God came and filled the lungs, and they became a living army again. And this is what it says in Ezekiel 37:14. It says, I will breathe my life into you and you will live. Then I will lead you straight back to your land, and you'll realize that I'm God. I've said it and I'll do it. Can I just tell you this morning, whatever the enemy has spoken into your life, that you are beyond repair, that you are beyond redemption, that there is something irreparably broken in your world, let me just tell you that is a lie straight from the pits of hell. Satan wants you to believe that, but God wants you to hear this morning that I will put my breath into you and you'll live. If you will give your broken pieces to me, if you will bring all of your brokenness, all of the scars, all of the hurt, all of the junk, all of the stuff that has distanced me from you, if you will bring those things to me, then I will put you back together into this beautiful mosaic, this beautiful tapestry, this beautiful piece of art for the whole world to see. For the world to see my goodness and my grace and my strength in your weakness. When I broke that window, I knew my mom loved me. I knew she was an amazing woman and is still an amazing woman. I knew she cared more about me than some silly kitchen window. But in that moment, the voice of truth was silenced by the voice of doubt and fear. And maybe in your life this morning, that's the case. Maybe the voice of truth has gotten a little bit turned down. And what you've been listening to is the voice of the enemy, convincing you that there's no hope. Well, I just want to tell you there is hope, and his name is Jesus. There is a truth, and his name is Jesus. There is redemption, and his name is Jesus. There is life, and his name is Jesus. And there is a master, and his name is Jesus. And he can make something beautiful out of your messed up, broken, difficult, hard to explain, hard to live with life. But it's up to you, and it's up to me to let go of the broken pieces and lay them at his feet. Say, here I am, Lord. Here I am. It's not perfect, and I can't see what you're going to make out of it. I can't see how you could turn my junk into something productive and useful for the kingdom, but I'm just going to trust you. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to go to a pastor's conference in Chicago. And we had some experiential prayer time that was woven into the conference. And so for about an hour, we had these experiential modules that we would go to. And this was all with people we didn't know. I went by myself, and so I knew absolutely zero people in the room. But we were all supposed to collaborate and work together. And inside these modules, inside these different places, there was an area that was with sand, and you could write stuff in sand, and there was a place where you wrote down prayers, and there was a meditation area. There was a place where you could create a mosaic. And I walked in, and I just kind of laughed to myself. I said, how is something that's worth anything going to come out of all of this? I mean, there are so many different people, so many different visions, so many different images, so many different ideas on what it should look like, and we're all working together, and this is going to be just a hot mess. Like, that was what I was thinking. This is going to be the hottest of messes, to be honest, because there were like 1,000 people there. So I just kind of walked by and said, I'm not even going to fool with this because that's just pointless. There's nothing good that's going to come out of that. At the end of the conference, I went back and looked. And that was one of the most beautiful pieces of art I've ever seen. It was gorgeous. And there were tons of different people that were involved in the making of this thing, all using broken pieces. I kind of think to myself this morning, it's kind of how our world is, right? There's so many of us. There are millions of us on the planet. And if we try to do our own thing, it's going to be the hottest of messes. But if we're all willing to put those pieces at Jesus' feet, He's going to turn this hot mess into something that's beautiful. He's going to turn this hot mess into a message that will point other people to Him. I don't know who here this morning needs to hear that. I don't know who here is online that needs to hear that this morning. But I want you to know this beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the God that I serve, the Jesus that I love, He loves you. And He wants you just as you are. Brokenness and all. Now, He's not going to leave you that way. But He wants you just like you are. Band's going to get ready to come and play one final song. As they do, I want to just ask you to just honestly, really look internally. Have I been trying to take these mistakes and this brokenness in my own life and put it back together by myself, or have I really surrendered this to Jesus? And if you haven't surrendered it to Jesus, then today is the day to do that. Today is the day to say, Lord, I can't do this on my own. I need you. Will you take my stuff? Will you take my junk? Will you take my mess and make something out of it, because I can't? I want to invite you to do that this morning as the band comes to sing and we play this final song. Holy Spirit, I pray in this room, and those who are watching online, God, if there's an area that is broken in our lives, that we haven't surrendered to you, that we haven't surrendered to your authority and to your will and to your plan and to your purpose, would you please, God, reveal that to us? And would you start with me? Would you reveal it to me, God, so that I can give all of the brokenness in my life to you? Father, would you allow us to just give everything away? For the one in the room who maybe they don't even know about this whole Jesus thing, they're still not certain. They feel like maybe there's too much in their past. Father, would you just reveal to them that they're not hopeless and that there is no sin too great that you can't forgive? I pray that you would draw people to yourself this morning, that life change would happen in this room. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. My mother forgave me. In fact, moments after I broke the window and I was weeping, we gathered together as a family and we decided to go on a hike. And she was intentional to let me know that she loved me and that the window was okay. Maybe some of us in the room this morning, we need to hear God say, I love you. And it's going to be okay. Trust me. I want to see you trust in him this morning.